So here's the thing about Hordak and Entrapta from She-Ra. God bless at Abigail Seves 9230 for reminding me that this series exists, and that I had once made videos about it because it was really due for a rewatch, and I forgot how genuinely uplifting and beautiful this entire series is, and how textured the relationship development is as well. And one of the relationships I appreciated the most was Hordak and Entrapta. Both of them started their journeys on the show feeling abandoned by those they swore allegiance to, looking for connection but ultimately falling short and feeling as though they were not accepted. Entrapta was convinced to join the Princess Alliance and genuinely grew to care about them throughout their short time together in Season 1, even if she might not show it through her expressions. However, in No Princess Left Behind, loved the ironic episode name, the group flies away believing she was killed. However, she was not aware of that perception, instead just believing that they had abandoned her. See, Entrapta has a difficult time fitting in with those around her. She knows that the general perception of her personality is weird, so she finds it difficult to believe that anyone would naturally enjoy her presence, especially after this initial betrayal. After all, she did spend a lot of time around no one but machines, and also the people who made her food, not really looking for the company of other princesses or humans. In fact, the showrunner, N.D. Stevenson, has stated that Entrapta is in fact autistic. Her struggle to adapt to typical norms about showing care for those around her and social cues, expressing her emotions, has been said to be great representation for people who are on the spectrum. Now, I've also encountered people who are on the spectrum and said the opposite, so obviously not everyone's gonna think the same thing. I am not on the spectrum, by the way, so I'm hesitant to talk about it from any informed place, but this does play into her character and relationship development quite a bit, so I feel it is worth mentioning. They are often ostracized for their seemingly odd behavior due to communicational deficits, but that does not mean that they want to be alone. Entrapta shares her care for others in separate ways, namely using technology to get others to like her, because technology is something she's more easily able to understand. As we see, she sometimes can become particularly fixated and sort of tune out her surroundings, or perhaps focuses on a less emotional piece of information in the face of possibly learning more about the general situation to be able to help the group and show that she cares about them, which is often received with an Office-like style look of confusion. If only there was a mockumentary camera, I guarantee you after every Entrapta line they would be staring right down, jimming the camera all over the place. Additionally, she doesn't read emotions super well off of other people, often invading personal space or making offhanded comments that are in no way intended to be rude, but sometimes are perceived as such by others. As a result, they become frustrated with her rather easily. These ideas are best depicted in the episode Launch, where the group struggles to really trust Entrapta or believe that she actually cares about rescuing Glimmer, since she had spent the last few seasons against them. Eventually, they blow up at her for not realizing how she's kind of messed up the mission around her and how her being distracted is constantly making them put in more effort than is perhaps necessary. She doesn't show what she feels through her expressions or what she says, but when it comes down to abandoning the mission and possibly not saving Glimmer, she sacrifices herself to be able to get the signal. She is the only one who is in favor of staying behind to make sure that they get what they need to be able to actually go after Glimmer and learn where the fuck in space she is. And she puts her own life on the line to be able to do so, to prove how much she cares to this group. Because, again, she has trouble simply stating or showing that through social cues. And in the first season, she finally thought she had found those who had accepted her and welcomed her into their circle. She had been able to successfully contribute and be accepted for her special interest in Etheria and its technology, and that meant everything to her. But feel free to let me know if I misrepresented anything and correct me in the comments. All I want to do is understand, so any help is appreciated, and I always welcome an opportunity to learn more about something that I'm not particularly familiar with. But the point is, after being betrayed by people you trusted that much, that you threw your entire kingdom's fate into the hands of, it fundamentally changes you. For her to learn that they were only using her for her skill set and didn't actually care about her as a person is a major blow. I've cited an article below that illustrates how being betrayed by those you've trusted in the past affects your ability about how to make informed decisions about who to trust next, which would definitely explain why Entrapta was so willing to work with the Horde after the princesses cast her aside. Catra contributes to this as well, fueling the notion that she was used and thrown away by Adora and painting her as a more sinister figure than she in fact is as revenge. Don't worry, there'll be a Catra video coming out soon. Not to mention, Catra often tells Entrapta that she belongs with the Horde, that she has a great amount of use here, which is a phrase she is definitely not familiar with, especially since everybody usually sees her as the weird, dorky outcast. We see this most evidently, though, when they're trying to escape from Beast Island.
You don't understand. That's okay, no one understands me. I tried to be a good friend, but I didn't understand that either. Everyone leaves me behind. Why should it be any different now?
Because we're not ever going to leave you behind again. And we never gave up on you, even when you were with the Horde, because that's what friends do.
You haven't given up on me?
Entrapta nearly succumbs to the signal entirely, leaning into those feelings that she doesn't belong anywhere, around any people, isn't supposed to have any sort of meaningful relationship. She resolves that she should just stay on Beast Island alone for the rest of her life because she can't get anything right. She feels that her personal relationships are too confusing at this point, that she has tried her hardest to find people who get her, but nobody will ever understand, and all of that hope is being taken up by this signal at that moment. Bo is able to convince her of the importance of these friendships, and that people do care about her, and the misconceptions about her being abandoned in the first place, which really helps her, even though it does appear that she is leaving for the ship after Adora says so. It's a little bit of a comedic moment. They often do that with Entrapta, but it's like I said earlier, there's not a lot of emotional moments with Entrapta. There's a couple very quick ones where she'll tear up or blush or something very quickly, but a lot of times it's eclipsed by her extremely eager and curious personality. And it doesn't allow you to see on the surface all of the emotions that she may be feeling. Now, additionally, Entrapta's motivation is largely based in exploration and experimentation, so this isn't a huge jump for her character anyway. She more wanted to figure things on Etheria out rather than save Etheria from the Horde. So her kind of putting aside any sort of moral qualms about what the Horde is doing isn't exactly the biggest leap, but I think the betrayal definitely fueled that decision and allowed her to turn on her blinders more strictly. But she still does have a moral compass. That is clear. She hasn't like done a complete 180 and become a different person. When the portal is near to being complete, Entrapta realizes the danger of opening it and does actually listen to Adora when warned about the potential consequences and cares more for the allies and lives around her, and her own life for that matter, than figuring out the portal or what the power from the heart of Etheria would do. She would usually be willing to take risks in the name of discovery, but with the potential threat's severity rising and rising, even she realizes that it's crossing a line that should not be crossed. So although she does work with the Horde for an extended period of time, there was never a period where I didn't understand her. And they do a great job of writing this character in a way where, yeah, it may not always be obvious what she's feeling or thinking, but you do always understand and follow her motivation. While Hordak, on the other hand, was literally created to serve without an identity, designed to be a part of a whole with Horde Prime's influence entirely over him. No name or identity of his own. But once Horde Prime realized that his clone wasn't perfectly created in his image, he pretty much threw him away, not even caring if he was alive after being pulled into that shadow dimension, and he had already been basically thrown away by being put on the front lines. That tiny part of him that was something, his connection to Horde Prime, the only thing that he was told ever had value within him, was completely disregarded, leaving him abandoned with nearly no sense of identity at all. And as a result, he shuts himself in, not letting anyone else even speak to him on a regular basis, for fear that they would discover his true form, at least in his own mind. A failure, a defective clone. Even Shadow Weaver in the earlier seasons barely gets to see anything, really only showing up over a screen, mind you, to tell her she's doing a bad job. All he really cares about is rebuilding an empire, returning to Prime, and earning his respect, but this time as an equal. In fact, I don't think that him standing besides Prime was much part of his plan until Entrapta arrived and helped him realize his true worth as an individual, that his own smarts could provide something else to Horde Prime's cause, not as a completely brainwashed clone. Previously, his plans were merely to be welcomed back into Prime with open arms, and to be seen not as a defect, but as a valuable soldier. But by season 5, when we actually meet Prime, he resolves to stand by him on the same level, showing how much effect Entrapta was able to have over his sense of self-worth through their shared experiences. But after he spends all this time building an empire as a tribute to Horde Prime, developing weapons, working to open the portal, to use the heart, he is immediately cast aside and devalued once again. The key is when Horde Prime states that there were thoughts in Hordak's head about wishing Prime would never return due to the successful empire he built on his own, with his own resolve. Because Entrapta was the only one who made him feel worth something, made him feel as if he was human, or, had humanity. Technically, no one is human in this show. She helped him triumph over his disability and forge an identity of his own. And thus, after building an entire life for himself, he feels trepidation at the prospect of leaving it all behind when Horde Prime comes back, as I feel like he knows in the back of his brain that Horde Prime probably won't accept him as an equal. They understood one another in a way no one else in the entire cast could, evidenced by how determined Entrapta is to return Hordak to his former state even after hope seems to be completely lost for him, or why Hordak refuses to believe Entrapta betrayed him when Catra first presents the idea. They're birds of a feather, two of a kind, in such a unique way where they were able to lift each other up and find worth when they were both abandoned. Truly, this is the most inspiring part of the story, and one that always gets me teary-eyed on rewatch. I know the ending is overly positive for some, but I'm so glad that these two were able to live happily and design and dream together for the foreseeable future. I wouldn't have wanted it to end any other way. Another reason this relationship is so great is Entrapta is one of the only people to see Hordak ever vulnerable, and then accepts and helps him rather than taking him down as he's so used to. One of my favorite parts about Hordak's character is how he's built up in the first few seasons as an extremely intimidating figure with very little screen time, mostly showing up to bark orders and look frightening, as I'm sure is his complete intention. But we learn later in season 3, episode 2, Huntara, that Hordak is actually himself physically limited, and that he puts on this extreme front to distract and deflect from this fact that he is simply a clone that was created incorrectly in Horde Prime's eyes. After all, his limitations were the entire reason he was thrown into this dark universe where he was meant to be forgotten, or die. He was raised to believe that his defects made him nothing, worthless. But what does Entrapta do when she learns about them? She makes him soup, covers him in a blanket, and immediately starts working toward a solution for him, which eventually results in a suit that allows him to move extremely well and without fatigue on his weaker muscles. She teaches him that everyone needs help sometimes, and that perfection is not something that realistically can be achieved. There's no shame in having a quirk, as he would call it, because you can work past it if you let people in enough to be able to help you and lift you up. In fact, she even calls his imperfections beautiful. She offers a starkly different perspective, one that provides complete acceptance and even reverence for his flaws, stating that they would only make him more lovable to her. This would not have even been a concept in Hordak's brain by this point, as he was never exposed to this sort of compassion, even with those who worked for him or when he was in Prime's good graces. They were his underlings, tools to be used to return to Horde Prime, and ones that must be hidden from his true nature. Not allies, not friends. They could never know the real him. It's only when it's accidental and forced through his boundaries that he can accept that sort of help, and it's through this that he realizes his own self-worth and shows compassion in return, though he struggles to verbalize it, which I found incredibly endearing. I mean, how much positive language has this guy even heard in his life? Half of Horde Prime's statements are about how Horde Prime cures all, knows all, sees all, and we must suffer to be made pure.
I acknowledge the work you put into this. No matter what you say, you are not a failure. Any who discount you are utter fools.
They really do character development so well in this show, incrementally, with little milestones that might not seem like a ton for the character at the time, but go a long way for the character's arc in the future. And when they speak and foray into territories we really haven't seen them go into before, the language is appropriately awkward as they don't really know how to represent those feelings. Another great thing about this relationship is showing the power of patience and reassurance. Hordak takes failure insanely heavily onto his own shoulders, while Entrapta has more of a failure is necessary for success mentality. She knows that if you don't fail, you won't ever learn anything. Hordak himself is impatient to rejoin his brothers and take his rightful place, as without Horde Prime, he considers himself to be nothing. And thus, whenever he doesn't succeed, he can feel Horde Prime's condemnation being proven right in the back of his own mind. A tiny voice telling him that he is a failure and that he's meant to live out his days separated from Prime on Etheria and die alone. The only reason they were able to achieve anything together was because of Entrapta's resilience and patience. Not just with the experiments, but with Hordak himself as well. When he grows frustrated, she doesn't fire back with frustration or anger. In fact, I don't even think we ever see Entrapta get angry. Like, ever. In the series. Sad, maybe, but angry? Not really. She's able to calm him down and soothe his rage and reassure him that they will be able to get things right in time. That confidence that Hordak lacks in himself causes him to doubt his ability to ever be able to accomplish his ultimate goal. It was instilled into him from the start of his very existence. Even his accomplishment of becoming a high-ranking officer in the Horde was overshadowed by his eventual cast-off and abandonment. All of that work was for nothing. And in the end, their patience pays off. I mean, obviously we didn't want them to succeed in making the portal because it could quite literally destroy reality, but you have to admit that their working together is a force to be reckoned with. Hordak is extremely intelligent. I mean, he built this whole empire by himself, but he lacks the focus and drive, and Entrapta has the strongest impulse to learn and grow I've ever seen. She is straight up unassuageable. Their combination is perfect for their experiments, and it's no wonder that they often result in success. And last but not least, these two have similar interests. One of the cutest things was their sharing of the scientific spirit. Hordak inadvertently discovered a career that he genuinely appreciated and enjoyed completing while he was working to earn his worth with Horde Prime. And Entrapta shares a natural enthusiasm for the exact same process. Watching her waltz into his chamber and immediately begin helping, unable to keep suggestions to herself, was so endearing. And although Hordak, obviously due to his sensitive nature and low opinion of himself, tries to push her out, his slow realization that she could be of extreme use to him and that she shares his fervor and excitement was so sweet to see spread across his face. Not to mention that she shows him the joy that can be found in all of their experimentation. It isn't all frustration, or it isn't all about the sake of the end goal. The pursuit of knowledge itself is exciting, and is the process that Entrapta enjoys the most. It can be a fulfilling endeavor, and this is what leads to him wanting to keep this life that he's built for himself on Etheria. He finds value in this process, in failure, in impurity, as Horde Prime would call it. That imperfection is a part of life, a crucially important part of life, and Entrapta was the one who helped him realize the error in Horde's viewpoint and present a starkly different worldview than any he's ever experienced. Overall, I think these two just fit together like pieces of a puzzle, like really well, lift each other up, and provide so much for both of their character arcs to the point where they grew into entirely different people by the end of the series. But the key to helping both of them grow and learn about themselves, and in turn discover what they truly wanted out of life and perhaps which side of the war they should be on, was their acceptance of one another. It transcended the conflict until it became part of the conflict, and that's what helped them both. It's such a beautiful, beautiful resolution to this relationship, one that has a core message that I think is really important for us nowadays, which is to love and accept one another as people, and doing that will help us realize our own flaws. We can't grow until we understand, and we can't understand until someone shows us the cycle we've been perpetuating or the error of our ways. It's important for us to learn and to listen to people that you don't expect could give you any advice that is valuable. You never know who could change your life. Anyway, let us know in the comments below if you agreed, and support us on Patreon at patreon.com/PosiTVty to get extra content in the form of unedited essays and all these videos before they come out on here. This essay was a disaster, so if you want to hear a bunch of mistakes and hear me laugh at myself, yeah, those are up on Patreon. But also, the support on YouTube means a ton to us, so thank you for all of that beautiful engagement, liking, subscribing, hitting the bell, discussing further in the comments. We love talking about these TV shows with you, and let me know if you'd like to see more She-Ra in the future, because I definitely like to do it. And again, I've linked all my sources in the description, so you can check those out if you want to read more about where I got some of my information from. But thank you so much for watching, and I will see you for the next video. See you later.